Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here to review the other movie that Bobby Beausoleil was in, as well as another Manson family follower, Catherine Sher. This movie is called The Ramrodder, and as you can tell by the title, it is a X-rated film. It's supposed to be like a Western, and it's supposed to take place in the 1800s. And yeah, it was an experience for sure. And as well, I am also working on my Halloween mask. I am actually making a Jason Voorhees mask of my own. And so I'm doing some painting right now, and it's been really fun making this mask, and so maybe I'll make another mask next year. So anyways, this movie, the plot is all about this cowboy, and he gets falsely accused of killing and raping this Indian woman after he is gifted this necklace, and so that's kind of like why they assume that he did it. And at the same time, he has a wife, and I don't know if that makes any sense what I've just been saying, but that's the plot of this movie. It's yeah. I mean, a lot of this movie, honestly, before we get into the nitty-gritty, the details of like everything that happened, I'd just like to say, like, this movie, it had a lot of just minutes and minutes of dancing scenes of these girls, and they're naked and they're dancing around, and they hardly have any meat on their bones. I mean, the main woman, the main Indian girl, who she's not the one who gets raped and killed, but the main one, she is like the most skinny one out of all the tribe. And it feels really unrealistic, too, because, after watching that Killers of the Flower Moon movie, it feels like, these women are really skinny for being in this Native American tribe and everything. Like, this just doesn't feel... Nothing about this movie feels accurate. I mean, the whole movie just kind of feels like this strange, It is supposed to be like an adult film type thing, but I don't know, it was really hard to see, what could you enjoy about this movie? Most of the dancing scenes, they're very awkward and weird because all the male actors are sitting there staring at the females dancing, and that's not really attractive to look at when you're, trying to get aroused or anything, and so that was kind of a fail. And in general, there were so many scenes in this movie where they're just dancing, and you have a different shot of them dancing. Oh, look, this is a shot from the ground of them dancing. Oh, look, this is a shot from over here of them dancing. I'm serious, that's almost the whole movie is just dancing, dancing, dancing. And the plot was terrible because it's very unsatisfying the way that this movie ends. It's very bizarre. It sort of just feels like, since the filmmakers made this partially so that people could, get aroused by it, that they didn't really put any effort into at least having, a satisfying conclusion. I mean, the only thing that's satisfying is that the bad guy, played by Bobby, coincidentally, the bad guy eventually gets killed. That is one of the good things, but other than that, this movie's really unsatisfying. I mean, as I said, the women don't have any meat on their bones, and it's just yeah. The music is terrible. Ugh, this was bad, but it was kind of entertaining, I guess, in a good, bad way. So let's get started with my notes. So one of the things to note about the movie is that it was filmed at the Spahn Ranch, where the Manson family were at. And so that is one interesting thing to note. And of course, this movie came out January 23rd, 1969. And that date is also very important. And we will talk about that a little later. So the first thing that I noticed was that there was this woman, and she is the wife of the main cowboy. She's okay. She's mid at best. And she's got red hair. And the first scene of her is herself washing in this old-fashioned bathtub. And right off the bat, I was thinking, you know what? This reminds me of the Fearless Vampire Killers, of Sarah, the main character in that, her in the bathtub. And she has the same type of haircut. It's almost the same type of bathtub, like this old-fashioned bathtub. And I was like, this is really weird. Why is this so similar? It's just so many coincidences. Like, that's just not... There's something about that so when I saw that, my radar was, like, going crazy, because I was like, okay, what else is going to be in this movie that seems really, really strange and, almost purposefully put there for some sinister reason. Well, then later on in the movie, she is wearing a red dress, which is a lot like the dress that Sarah wears in the Fearless Vampire Killers. And I was like, this is very weird. Very, very weird. So those are the two, main things that I noticed. But another thing would be, the story is actually very similar to Fearless Vampire Killers in certain ways. Because what happens with the wife is that she ends up getting kidnapped by the Indians. Just like how Sarah is kidnapped by the vampires in Fearless Vampire Killers. And then, when she's kidnapped, she ends up doing a dance. And then she ends up having sex with one of the Indians. And then later on in the movie, she confesses that it changed her. And something wild awakened inside of her. And it was like she was forever changed by being kidnapped and then interacting with these Indians. And so it's a lot like in Fearless Vampire Killers, where she gets kidnapped and she gets turned into a vampire. So yeah, those were the main things that I noticed of how this movie was similar to Fearless Vampire Killers. And I thought that those were very much worth pointing out. This movie was also released on January 23rd, which was a day before Sharon's last birthday. That's another interesting thing to point out. Why that specific date? I just don't think that it's a coincidence at all. I think that it was done on purpose, and I don't understand why. This painting is tough because I'm putting the paint in the little tiny paint lid, and it's like hardly any paint. Does that sound... I know that sounds kind of funny. And why does my voice sound weird this morning? It sounds like... I don't know. I apologize for it. I sound like I have a cold or something. And there's one point, too, where the girls are having a duel. The main wife and then the main Native American Indian girl. And it's really hilarious because when they're fighting, the camera zooms into their boobs. And they keep on showing their boobs fighting each other. So, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking with that. That was supposed to be attractive. These girls' boobs are, bumping into each other. It's really bizarre. These girls' boobs just can't stop, fighting. And so that was also pretty hilarious. One of the more hilarious parts of the movie, actually. And then the main cowboy, he looks a lot like Edmund O'Brien. He's not, but he looks a lot like him. So I thought that that was interesting. So basically what happens with this movie is that this cowboy, he gets gifted this necklace by the chief for doing something very good for them, which is their land is going to be titled or classified as a reservation. Okay, I'm done painting. I'm going to let that dry. And so when he gets this necklace, he actually gets robbed when he's just riding back home or whatever. And the guy robbing him is Bobby. And he takes the necklace and a couple of dollars that he has, and then he goes off and he rapes and kills that other Native American woman. And they try to search for the cowboy, and I'm not kidding when I say, like, the cowboy just disappears from the movie. And it's like, where did he go? Like, he's just, like, wandering around the forest or something. Like, he just disappears. And so then the certain Native Americans, they go and they kidnap this random white woman, and they gang rape her as revenge for something that they think that cowboy did, but he didn't. And then at the same time, and they don't show the gang rape on screen. Like, in terms of being an X-rated movie, the only X-rated stuff is really just shots of these naked women dancing, or just them being naked in general. There's no actual sex or anything on screen, so that's also kind of a bummer, kind of a waste of time. And the others actually kidnap the wife, as I said, and then the wife ends up having sex with one of them. And then finally, the cowboy turns himself in, and he says, look, that's not what happened, this is what happened, and then the Indian girl that he had sex with, she comes forward and says, like, look, the whole time that he should have been killing her, he was with me. And I was like, yeah, why didn't the cowboy just admit that he was with the Native American girl while that other girl was getting killed? Like, that would have been, because if this was modern day, all the police would have had to do is just question that Native American girl and be like, okay, you were with him that whole time, so he could not have done this. And she'd be like, yeah. And it'd be like, okay, good, we're done. Like, but these Native Americans, one of my big problems with this movie, and I know that it's not really taking itself seriously, but one of my big problems is how it kind of paints Native American people in this movie, because they're all really idiotic and stupid and barbaric and abusive and violent, and it's just, and I know that they're a lot like that in real life. That's not to say no Native American was ever like a violent abuser or something, but in this movie, it's almost like this tribe is so stupid that they won't believe, like, it's so, like, convenient for the plot that, like, oh, they still won't believe that, because then they're like, oh, well, we don't believe you, so we're going to tie you up and cut off your genitals and kill you. And it's like, oh, wow. So, like, after all that cowboy did for this tribe, this is how they treat him. And I gotta be honest, if I was this cowboy, it doesn't matter if I had raped or killed that woman or not. I would have killed every single person in this tribe and then taken that one Native American girl for myself. Like, that's what I would have done if I was in this movie's universe. Because, like, after doing all that he did for this tribe, securing their land as a reservation, they turn on him and they say, look, we're going to cut off your genitals because we're not going to believe you. And that's another weird thing, too, is, like, this movie is like, it's like the Me Too movement type thing, where, like, oh, they're not going to believe this guy, even though he has all this evidence. He has this girl who says that she was with him that whole afternoon when she was killed. Oh, that doesn't matter. We don't believe you. So then they decide to do a test on the girl. And by the way, one of the hilarious quotes was the abusive Native American guy, who a lot of the Native Americans in this movie are just white guys, actually, so I will say that as well. They didn't want to hire Native American actors for some reason, so that's what they did for this movie. And the guy says, "You know our ways and our laws. What better way to confuse us than with our own logic?" Like, what the fuck? and that's coming from the guy who's wearing mahjong tiles on his forehead. Like, there's this one guy, and he's got a string of mahjong tiles on his forehead the whole movie, and it looks really hilarious. So then the Indian girl, she has this test done where this other Native American girl, like, takes this wooden dildo and puts it inside of her. And I guess the test is that if she has a hard time with it, then it proves that she's still a virgin. Like, it's very strange. And they don't show it at all or anything, and it's just like, this is retarded. Like, did they actually do this? Like, did Native Americans test the virginity of their girls by inserting a piece of wood inside of them and being like, is that hurt? Is that hard for you to handle? Like, that's really weird. And anyway, she passes the test with flying colors. I mean, she's like, ooh. That's when it goes in, she's like, ooh. And then she's like, ooh. It's really funny. And even though this cowboy gets proven innocent, the chief still punishes him. He doesn't give him the necklace back that he gifted him, and he says, hey, you're not going to be with that Indian girl anymore because she won't be accepted in the white camp. And it's like, who fucking cares? Like, that's his girl. He wants to be with her. And like, this chief is saying, no, she has no free will. She will not be with you. She will be with the abusive Indian instead. And so then, guess what happens? The abusive Indian, he takes her and he whips her, and then she gets into it, and then he has sex with her. And it's like, wow, this is so unsatisfying. Like, this cowboy, he wanted to spice things up and be with this fake native girl. And then he gets falsely accused, and he gets proven innocent. And what does he get for all this? Nothing. He gets shit. He gets his shitty wife who cheated on him for no reason after he cheated on her first. And there's this queer moment too, like a romantic comedy style moment where she apologizes, and it's that typical romantic movie scene where, like, the two partners apologize to each other for doing wrong to one another. It's just so stupid. And meanwhile, that Indian girl has to be married to the abusive Indian guy forever. Like, that's just terrible. I swear, if I was this cowboy, I would have taken out that whole camp immediately. I would have set them all on fire and say, hey, you want to falsely accuse me? Okay, I'm going to set you on fire. Like fake fire, obviously, but just if I was in the movie. Because, like, this cowboy, he put up with a lot of shit in this movie that he shouldn't have put up with. Like, the fact that he couldn't be with that Indian girl anymore is just beyond my, like, comprehension, because usually in these movies, it's supposed to be like a happy ending where he gets to get the girl, the best girl in the movie. His wife is still with him for some reason. I mean, that's another thing, too. The wife doesn't even act like she's mad that he cheated on her. So I don't know, I'm just... And then the lesson of this movie, they tried to bake in this stupid lesson like it was an after-school special. It's all about anti-violence because, violence begets violence. And it's like, yeah, fuck you. You're forcing a Native American girl to be with an abusive man her whole life. Like, that's disgusting. Like, you're the violent people. And so that's what I say, like, the way they paint Native American people in this movie is like they're all violent, abusive, and evil. And stupid, too. Like, they're all really stupid because they won't believe evidence. They'll believe a stupid test where you use a wooden dildo, but they won't believe actual evidence. And then it's funny, too, because right after they say this anti-violence message, then that's when Bobby actually gets found by the banished rapists. Who the rapists, they all get banished from the tribe. And this tribe is actually, they are no longer going to have a reservation. And they are all going to be hunted down and killed because of kidnapping and gang raping that white woman. So really, this whole movie is just a terribly unhappy ending. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is supposed to be like a movie where you have a good time. And the movie where you have a good time is like where it just has the most unsatisfying ending ever. And so right at the end, this is the very ending of the movie, Bobby gets found, and they cut off his you-know-what, and they kill him. And it's like, wow, that really undercuts the anti-violence narrative, doesn't it? Like, just because that guy was an evil rapist murderer, like, it's all about an eye for an eye. And it's that typical thing of like, oh, violence is totally the wrong, and it's bad. But let's just hunt people down and kill them without giving them a trial, you know? Let's just hunt people down and kill them out in the open like it's the Wild West. Let's not have like a system where it's just this is ridiculous, this movie. And you can tell by how bad the movie is by how kind of wonky this review has been. You know, like whenever a review is really wonky and kind of like, I don't know, just all over the place, that's when you know a movie's bad, like really, really bad. Because you know how good I am at like doing a review by myself, really. Well, that's how bad this movie is that it makes me seem like I'm not really that good at doing a review. Even after I took extensive notes, too, that's another big red flag. So what I would rate this movie in terms of food, I would rate it a stale mint chocolate chip birthday cake from Kroger. So what happened was, when I was a kid, sometimes I would get cakes from Kroger because I didn't know that you could get cakes from other places. I thought you could only get a cake from a grocery store. And let's just say it was a very boring mint cake. And it was okay at first because, you know, it's mint and I really like mint flavor. And then you have the ice cream with that. But this cake was just so artificial. It was so, like, just, ugh. The chocolate chips were really small and tiny and hard as a rock. And, you know, you can't eat your birthday cake all at once. So, like, I had to wait several days. I had to go through several days of eating this cake. By the second day, it got stale. And it was dried out. The chips were even harder. The icing was gross. Like, it was terrible. And I hated it because, like, you know, a birthday cake experience, you kind of want to be able to have that cake for multiple days to a week. You know, you want to enjoy that experience of, like, oh, every day I get to have cake and ice cream from my birthday cake. But no, not with that one cake. And so the next year, I think after that was the first year that I stopped getting birthday cakes at Kroger. I think I was like 9 years old or 10 years old. That was definitely like one of the worst birthday cakes, if not the worst birthday cake. And this movie, I hated it. Mostly for the fact that it had such an unsatisfying ending. It had an unsatisfying, everything after the second half of the movie is terrible. Because it's like there's no like, all the chief does is he apologizes to the cowboy and says, okay, bye-bye. He doesn't get any sort of, like, anything for having been falsely accused and threatened that he would be castrated and have his you-know-what cut off. And then that Indian girl, she gets forced to be with that abusive guy. Like, it's just a terrible, terrible ending. And I feel like even if this movie is an X-rated movie and it's just made so that people can get their rocks off, it should still have, like, a good ending where it's like, that makes me feel good. Like, that fun little ending. Like, you shouldn't have this, like, dark, unsatisfying 1970s movie type of ending at the end of this X-rated movie. Like, it's just terrible. It's not Midnight Cowboy they're making. It's fucking the Ramrodder. And by the way, I think, I don't even know, why did they call this the Ramrodder? There's the only scene where they do the ramrodding is where they do the wooden dildo test, and it's like, that's why they named this movie the Ramrodder. So, like, yeah, this is one of the worst movies I've seen all year. I just ranked it, and yeah, it's like at the very bottom. So anyways, please like this video, comment, and then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more movie reviews. And then I waited too because I wanted to see if I would have any dreams after watching the movie, any interesting dreams, and no, I didn't have anything. So that's another. And when I was watching the movie, I was like, am I wasting my time watching this movie? Because I thought, like, in real life, I probably didn't watch this movie, and I was right. I was 100% right. I did not watch this movie because didn't give me any sort of anything when I went to sleep. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.